Hi, Serena. Welcome to the third episode.
Sally, here we are.
I know,
Episode
and
number
today,
3.
yes, episode number 3. And today we are talking about goals, goal setting, why people struggle with goals, how not to struggle with goals, all sorts of things to do with goals. Is that all right with you?
I think it's great. I think it's a lovely conversation to have in the early part of the year when maybe people are thinking about setting goals for themselves in the year
Yes.
ahead as well. Actually,
Yes.
have you set any goals for the year? Or would you like to set any goals for 2024?
Um,
Is that
well,
putting you on the spot, Sally?
No, I'm just sort of thinking, I'm just kind of feeling where I am. I will be doing I'll be creating a new business offering in the new year. So that's something that is, I mean, it's a goal of mine to do. Personally, I am wanting to be able to, this is quite a personal one actually, and I don't know how you measure this. I'm
Mm.
sure there is a way of doing it, but I've been doing a course on holding space. So becoming like a space holding practitioner. And it's not really about how to hold space, like the structure of a space holding session and what you do within it. It's more about becoming a loving presence to hold space for whoever is in your vicinity. So I feel like I can do that professionally quite well because the intention's really
Mm.
strong. I don't want to be like, I don't want my name to be smeared or anything like that. So the driver is quite high for that. But sometimes in my personal life, I don't hold space for my loved ones as well as I would like to. So that will really be something that I'm focusing on with a huge amount of intent for this year. What about you?
Gosh, I love that. That's so thoughtful. And the lovely fact that your loved ones will benefit from that as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. So for me, I also have a new business offering. So obviously we pre-record these and we're doing it before the year starts. But I have my membership launching in January for
Mm-hmm.
Psych Lab. So I'm really excited. So as people are listening to this, it will be in full flow. And I've worked very, very, very hard on that. So it'd be lovely to see that come to fruition. And I also have another couple of events that I'm putting on next year, which I've avoided for a very, very long time.
Mm.
From a personal point of view, for me, I want to make more time and space for, I want to say rest and adventure. They sound like they're different things,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, being on an adventure and being away is restful.
Yeah.
So to have more of that this year is really, really important to me because I've noticed over the last few years that that's really energized me
Yeah.
and I haven't done it enough. So more adventure.
Yeah. Me too, actually.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. That's
yeah,
one of mine. Yeah, going away, and I didn't really value it before. Now I'm
interesting.
valuing it more because I'm seeing the benefits that I'm getting from it. So yeah, that's
Love
definitely
that.
informing that goal.
Love it. Maybe we'll
So should
have
we
an adventure
start?
together.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yes.
I'd love that. Let's do a little retreat
Yeah.
together. Do a
What the
live
bleep in
podcast.
person? Yeah. So, Sally, what are goals?
Okay. Goals. So goals are different to values. Values drive goals. So goals are those, well, people think of them as SMART goals, those specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound goals that we choose, that are driven by what we want to achieve in our lives. So they are much more specific than a value.
Mm,
They provide direction in our lives. They often can motivate us. Like if we really want the goal, we want to, I don't know, run a marathon or get a gold medal or get a trophy or get a prize or get an accolade or an achievement. They can be really motivating, and
mm.
they help us to take action. Well, you would
Do
hope
you,
that they would
well, do
help
you
us to
find
take
them?
action.
Sorry, I interrupted you there, but I was going to say, do you find them motivating? So, do you set goals for yourself?
No.
You don't.
No, I'm terrible at setting goals because I'm a rebel. I do what I want when I want. Have you heard of Gretchen
Ah,
Rubin?
yes, I have. Yes,
Yeah.
I read her The Happiness Project.
Okay.
I
So
used to
I'm
recommend that to lots of my clients.
It's really good. I love
Mm,
her work. It took me a while to get into it, but the four tendencies.
yeah.
Now I'm becoming more of a rebel, but I was an upholder. And
Oh,
an
interesting.
upholder just sets a
Mm,
goal and does it. Doesn't need any accountability.
yeah.
In fact, accountability for me puts me off. Like I can't. I feel that having to report back to someone just
Ooh.
gets in the way of me. Gets in the way of me taking action. It's like this unnecessary thing that I have to do. So I do feel like as I've shifted, like gone through menopause and just changed, I've definitely become much more rebellious. In fact, I've got a picture behind me that says "Rebels get results." If you can
Oh,
see that.
yes. That's on even on your wall. That goes to show how deeply meaningful this is to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's for me. It's down to like it's more about. So for me, to make something happen in my life, it's got to be really intuitive,
Mm,
and I need quite a lot of flexibility in order to
mm,
achieve what I want to achieve. And if all of a sudden I don't want to do the thing, then I won't do it. And that's okay. It's not like I beat myself up over it. So I am a bit. I don't know whether it's some might see that as a bit wishy washy, or just like I haven't sort of I haven't chosen well enough. But I think
mm.
because I'm happy with who I am and I know myself, as we were talking about in the last episode about knowing yourself, like that's okay for me. I've no desire to run a marathon. I've no desire to climb Mount Everest or anything like that. It's not. It doesn't form part of the fabric of myself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. At the start of this podcast, you said that you want to launch a new product in the new year for your business. So is that not a
Yeah.
goal? So how do you know you're going to achieve that?
Well, just no, because I will. It's
But
funny,
why
isn't
did
it?
you? But why did you even set it in the first place? If you so how does that differ from a goal if you've set yourself something? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's to do with choice. So once I know I've chosen something, I
Mm,
know I'll follow through. Like once I've chosen it and I've made
mm,
that decision and I've felt it in my body, there's no question that I will follow through on it. Like
okay.
choosing to go to yoga this morning. Yeah, if it's raining outside, if it's windy, if it's dark, if I've made that decision, I'll just go.
That's interesting. So something about that psychology tells me that your history of having completed, like finished the cycle, like to have closed the loop, that you can
Yeah.
rely on yourself for closing that loop. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, I think
so that
so.
again, going back to that idea that we've talked about in previous episodes of having a muscle that you build
Hmm.
over time, you have a reliance on the fact that you've worked that muscle, and so if you put your mind to something it will happen, but you don't necessarily want to call it a goal. That's also the rebel in you.
Yes. Goals?
Because some people
No,
might
I don't
say
do
that's a
goals.
goal, yeah, and yet you've got a goal. Maybe I would say maybe that's a goal.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true, Serena. I think it's something about the word goal.
Yeah.
The word goal makes me want to throw up. So
So
odd.
it's lovely that, so I love this. So sorry, I feel like I've just totally hunkered down on everything you said there, but
It's
I think
fine.
it's a lovely like conversation to have explored, because when I teach this in a room full of people, I'll always have a subset of those people that cannot stand me talking about goals. And they're the rebels in the room. They're the people like you that just do not want to be told
Yeah.
that in order to achieve something, you have to have a goal.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so. You will get people that love goals and they want to set goals for themselves.
Yeah.
And the people that I see that don't like to set goals are what I call evolvers.
Okay.
So in my own model of change, considering that in my model there are three profiles: an acquirer, a performer, and an evolver. And an evolver is someone who likes to break routines. They embrace failure a lot of the time, because they don't see it as failure. They see it as maybe trying new things and doing lots of things and finding themselves. They're looking for connection and purpose and play.
Mm-hmm.
So those values are very dear to them. So setting a goal feels very quashing.
Yeah.
Whereas you
Feels
get
boring.
and you get someone like me who's an acquirer who loves them, because that's my safe place. I get to sit, I get to read about things, analyze things, over-analyze things, set goals, and just create a safe place of, if I'm not very careful, I stay stuck in acquisition.
Okay.
And
And
so,
what's
yeah,
the
go
other
on.
one?
Performer. So
Perform.
performers are people who are just always on a treadmill. They're always doing something. They're always in action. And often if you stop a performer in their tracks and you say, why are you doing it? They don't really know why.
Okay.
They just have to keep moving. They have to keep doing something. So they're often people who maybe end up in jobs. They don't really know how they ended up there. They just knew they had to keep going and doing something. They maybe got on a tracker or a train of function or performance that they don't really know why they were doing it, but they just have to keep doing something. Now, to truly evolve, I argue that you have to have all three in motion, and that a true evolutionary process is going through all of that as a cycle. But goal setting for me doesn't matter where you are, because it's important to all of us. We must set goals to know where we're headed.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of goals, not just because I'm an acquirer, but because I think, again, from my own teaching and from the research, often what you find is that people who don't set goals often feel like they've not achieved what they set out to achieve.
Yeah, I do often feel like that, actually. Even though I've achieved quite a lot,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have. And also, when I look back on my life, I can see how, because I've not been as laser focused as someone like you, perhaps, with the goals, because it's all been very intuitive. It's also been a bit chaotic and a bit messy.
Yeah, and there's almost like no record. So if you think about this from a psychological perspective, a goal isn't as sinister as it sounds. Again, it comes down to your feelings towards it. And you were really, your story was so interesting, because it just goes to show your deep personal relationship and how you feel about a goal. It feels like it's
Yeah,
not yours, that you don't have ownership of it, but
exactly.
you want to feel like you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
And yet your brain also needs the feedback that something has worked. And we do that by achieving something. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to tick it off like physically on a list, although I love that. But your brain gets the feedback loop that that's work, that you achieved it, and now you can evolve that and grow it and kind of look at evolving that goal to the next step. And so that feeling of chaos, and maybe even, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, tell me if this resonates for you, but feeling maybe like you haven't done enough or achieved enough.
Yeah, that's always followed me around. Yeah.
And that's because your brain hasn't had time to celebrate the wins it's had.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you're always looking at the next thing versus taking time to intuitively be with what you've actually done, and to sit with that and to celebrate that for long enough.
I can feel a coaching session coming on, Serena.
Well, also for anyone listening, it's why, as part of goal setting, we've kind of sped forward, really. We can go back and look at what makes a good goal, but to think about how you factor in celebrating the milestones to get to the goal, and to have the mini goals that get you to the bigger goal is really important, so that you can have and weave in a reward system to that. And again, it's not as shallow as it sounds, because it's, again, giving your brain the feedback it needs to know that something is working. And we actually all need that.
Yeah. So a moment in time where you can just reflect, take a moment to recognize how far you've come.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, if you've been clear at the start of something that this is what you want to achieve, there's clarity around the fact that you have achieved it, and then you get the opportunity to then grow that and evolve that process. It's not it's not static, it's dynamic. Goals are dynamic. They're not. And I think the other thing is why it feels scary to people is it feels like a dead end sometimes.
Exactly that. Yeah. So expand on that, Serena, then, that this idea that goals are dynamic and not static.
So if we consider for a moment that humans, hopefully while they're here on this fine earth, and the people listening included, will want to grow and have self-growth while they're here on this fine earth, as you grow and change, and we touched upon this in the last episode around values, as you grow and change, how you see the world naturally grows and evolves with you. And
Yeah.
therefore, the things that you wish to achieve are going to evolve. So what was a goal for you 10 years ago, I'm assuming is not a goal for you now.
No,
And
not at all.
that's how it should be. Although what you'll probably find, and so when I do this work with people, what you'll probably find is some goals never shift. There'll be
Yeah.
some goals that are going to constantly be on your list of goals. They're kind of more fundamental, and they're probably more related to values.
Yeah.
And then there are goals that are extremely dynamic. For example, a business goal is going to change as your business evolves. Your relationship goals potentially will shift. Although some of the goals you have, for example, if you say you want, this is a bit pesky because I'm going to backtrack on this as well, but if you would like a loving relationship as a goal, I'm assuming that feels for you like that won't change. It's not like suddenly you don't want to have a loving relationship. And yet just having clarity around breaking what that means down a little bit more and being able to break that into tangible goals is important, because those things will naturally grow and change as you and your relationship grows and changes.
Yeah, I see. I think where I come a cropper is this idea that
I love
if
that.
I come a cropper, don't know where that comes from. If I choose a goal
Yeah.
and then I go, right, that's my goal, and then I halfway through sort of achieving that goal, I decide that that's no longer my goal because I've shifted in some way, I've morphed, I've changed, and I'm very mutable. Like I am a mutable sign. Is mutable the sign or cardinal? Can't remember. But anyway, my star sign is one that changes quite a lot. I then feel I can't tick that off my list. Now I'm very motivated by ticking stuff off my list. It gives me a sense of wholeness and completion.
Which is funny then, because you said you're contradicting yourself left and right. You said you don't like
Yeah.
goals, and yet you like to-do lists, which are mini goals.
Yeah. I do like to do. I like that sense of completion. So in a way, that's why I don't like to have these big goals just in case I don't complete them.
So this is different.
Okay.
So we are going off piece here, but I think it's important because people might take a lot from this. You said because I might not complete them. So that this is actually more fear-based.
Oh my God. You see,
this isn't
working
about
with
goals.
A psychologist, she picks it out. There's nowhere to run.
There's nowhere to hide. leave the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got some fear going on, but this is good because this will highlight this for me and for other people.
Yeah, it's hard. So there'll be a reason that it would be maybe powerful for you to explore where that fear comes from setting a goal. And it might be as simple as, for a start, just thinking back to when you've set goals before. And can you think of the first time maybe you set a goal, or maybe the first time you didn't complete it, and how you made that, what you made that mean, and how you felt?
Yeah, brilliant. So that's an RTT session I could have with someone. Yeah,
this is going back to that kind of, like I said before in a previous episodes, when you think about you as an individual and your individual story. So if you have a fear response to something, where does that come from? So again, if someone's listening, if they notice that they're reluctant to set goals, again, having that conversation with yourself, essentially, like, where does that come from? Maybe what am I afraid of? What do I make it mean if I don't achieve it? It's a really powerful way of
probably
unlocking.
Comes from, perfectionism, daddy issues, still a bit of an overlay of that.
Well, it's funny that you said that. I'm going to have to pick up on that straight away, because perfectionism really is just fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's fear personified. It's fear of putting a stake in the ground, and that's linked to fear of failure. So whatever failure, so actually it's a really good opportunity to bring into something very, very important into this discussion, which is just getting very clear on your definitions of the words you use when you're setting goals. So
Yeah.
I said before I was being a bit pesky when I said a loving relationship. If you actually have goals like that, and I do this, I go into a lot of depth into this in the courses that I teach on behaviour change, and it's a very powerful unlock. And that is for you to have absolute clarity about what you mean if you're using words like loving or you're
Okay.
saying successful. So words, for example, if I said to you, what does a loving relationship look like? And I'm not saying you have to answer that,
Yeah.
but your version of that is arguably going to be different to mine, is going to be different to the next person.
Yeah.
So if you are setting goals, just as a quick but very mighty tip, and if you're doing the work with someone else and you're helping them set goals, don't let them get away with using those evasive words that actually don't mean anything.
Yeah.
So if you want to set a goal, you have to have absolute clarity over how you will achieve that. And if you're not clear, you may be setting yourself up to fail.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of the unlocking questions. And I do this with my clients in their
Mm,
consultations. Well, if they're coming to me because they want to change something, we're always going into the why. Why is that important? Why is that important?
mm,
Why is that important? And just keep asking that same question. And it's for them to learn about themselves and what their
yeah.
drivers and motivators are, and where there might be some red flags and some.
Yeah, because it's very individual to you. And again, if you're doing the work with someone else and they are saying things like loving relationship, get them to break that down and describe in detail what that actually means and what that looks like. Because the other thing is, if you create goals that have no specificity to them, how do you ever know you've achieved it?
Yeah.
And
So
that
that.
links to that really powerful research, I think, around older age, where you see people have regret. So how do you know you've achieved something if you've never been specific about what it is you actually want to achieve? And this is why goals work is not as simple as it looks.
It's really
And
not, is it?
no, and it's really interesting because I often get asked to do talks on goal setting, and I notice that for a lot of practitioners, it's one of the first places that they land. Or even for you, if you're listening to this and you're just setting goals for yourself, you might launch into your goals. But I would say there's a lot of work that goes before you set a goal. To go into just setting a goal is in some way setting yourself up to fail. You have to think about the steps that have to be in place before you set the goal. Why do I want to do this? Why am I doing it? What is it I actually want to achieve, and can I have specificity around it? And from that, I can start to set some very specific goals and some mini goals to get me to the place that I say I want to be. But you have to know why you want to do it in the first place.
Something that's just come into my head, like why people perhaps don't choose a goal, and I know this for me has come up, is this idea of overwhelm, and that
Mm,
there are almost in this day and age too many choices, too many options. And when I came to deciding that I was going to take a course on space holding, I actually went through quite a lot of layers to get to that, because as you know, you go on the internet, once you start looking for online courses, you can train in anything and everything, and you think, oh, that, shiny new toy syndrome, the magpie syndrome, and you're like, oh yeah, this will be amazing. I had to really sit and think, no, actually, what do I do in my life
mm,
right now already, and how can I just augment that a little bit? I don't want to go off and become a somatic trauma informed coaching
mm,
trainer, because that's like, even though it sounds really sexy and I'd probably learn a lot from it, like what I'm doing right now, that would be a whole new train track. If
mm,
I could just stay on my train track and just go to the next station, what might that look like? And for me,
mm,
that was about so I have, with the clients that I work with, I generally work with people once, and they take a recording and they listen to it, that recording, and that rewires the neural pathways and helps them some way to creating the changes that they want. Very often they're like, yeah, I feel amazing, I'm totally different, I'm on a totally different trajectory now, thank you, our work is done. And then they might find something else that they want to work with to support that. But I thought, well, it's like I'm hemorrhaging all of these clients, and actually I could work with them on a continuous basis to support their growth. How can I do that? And I thought, like yourself with the membership idea, I thought, yeah, I'd like to create some kind of membership where I can keep those clients, not just for the financial purposes, but also for deepening those relationships with them. Because I feel sad, like once they've gone off, I don't know, 2-3 years down the line, how they're doing what they're doing. If I can work with them continuously, I get to hold space for their changes. I get to help them to, work through stuff. But mainly for me, it's about that compassionate connection, that kind connection, and just that inquiry, really. Like you said a couple of episodes ago, all coaching and therapy is a series of asking questions. And when you ask somebody questions, you creates this magical spark that happens where they get insights for themselves and they can then facilitate their own change process. So that was a very long-winded way of saying I had to, in order to know what my next goal was for me, I had to bring myself right back to the present moment, stop looking at what else there was out there. In fact, I didn't even do any research. I just knew I want to create a membership, and I want it to be something around holding space. And so I then went onto Googled space holding courses, and there was one course, I think, that was starting in a few weeks. I thought, that's that. I'm not going to go down this like exploratory rabbit hole of all the options available, because that overwhelm for me is such a big barrier to deciding what the next step is.
I think so. What I'm hearing when you say that, and maybe again, correct me if I'm wrong. So, if I just take a step back for a second, so when I'm working with someone and getting them to figure out what they need to do for themselves, it's really important that they tune into their own voice and their own intuition.
Definitely.
And I think we live in a very, very, very noisy world.
Yeah.
So with social media as it is, we can become we can veer off our own path if we're not very careful. And to be fair, it's hard enough as it is. So you might realize that you're actually pursuing something that isn't your own truth, that isn't a goal that you really hold for yourself, but you've become persuaded by what you see and what you hear. And like I said, it's hard enough as it is, because what you'll find is it's also very difficult to tune into your own voice at the best of times, because is that really your voice, or is that the voice of your parent?
Yeah.
Or is it the voice of your partner? Or is it the voice of I should? And usually I should is not really your truth. So to create, what I'm saying ultimately is to create goals out of those places can be maladaptive, and it's where you usually find that someone's pursuing something that isn't really for them. So I think when you're thinking about setting goals, when you're going to that place of thinking, why do I want to do it, to create enough space around that questioning to tap into your own intuition about what you actually want and what is in your best interest, it can be very difficult to get to that place, which is why it's not a quick conversation. And it's not a quick thing to get to for yourself. So if you're doing this for yourself and you're setting goals, I would spend some time there thinking about why you want to have, why are they your goals? Are they your goals? Is one of your goals actually, and I've had clients like this where we've realized, when people have come to me in the past, obviously I don't do this work anymore, but when they've been incredibly unhappy, maybe the place that they're at is a place that's been crafted by achieving a series of one goal after another that was never their own. That they've ended up in a job because it's what their dad wanted them to do. And then it's now what their wife wants them to keep doing, because they are accustomed to a particular way of living, and now they feel trapped and stuck and they're not living their truth. And so to drown out as much as you can of other people's voices as well as just that looking like, you know, what you can expose yourself to in terms of what you're consuming, in terms of media and social media and what you're reading. Just be very mindful of what you're taking in, because you're creating static. You're not able to hear your own voice and hear your own intuition around what's really what's for you. And only when you get to that place can you set goals that are meaningful.
Yeah.
But that was a bit of a
Completely agree.
rant. Sandwich board off, Sally.
Oh, I love it. Can we just finish by
Yes.
saying what are some strategies to help someone bounce back after not achieving their goals? I think this is quite an interesting exploration. Have you got anything that comes to
I think the
mind?
first thing when you said that was just to be kind to yourself. That's the first
Yeah.
thing. You know, I have clients all the time that fall off the wagon. Hell, I've done it. You know, we're human. The human condition is to do this. And I'm not saying that that's your get out of jail free card the whole time, you know, but just to be kind to yourself, really, because it's normal for us to fall off the wagon for whatever reason. So to be gentle to yourself in regard to that, and just to pick yourself back up and to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not reallocate.
Recalibrate?
That'll do. Yeah, that recalibrate and reorientate yourself towards
Yeah.
your goal. If your why is in place and you know why you're doing it and you're doing it for a good reason and it's something that you really want to do, you will pick yourself back up and reorientate yourself towards
Yeah.
that goal. So just
Yeah.
to be kind to yourself if you slip off or fall off the wagon, because it's normal. And
Yeah.
also, if, you know, life circumstances, things get in the way. And I do, without going too woo-woo, I do also talk a lot about divine timing when I do this work,
Yeah.
because there's a lot to be said for just making changes at the right time for yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need space to focus on other things for whatever reason. And so, again, if your reason for doing it is true and it's your truth, you will reorientate yourself towards
Yeah.
that goal when the time is right.
I think so too. I mean, I recently had a goal of selling the house and moving, and we just couldn't sell. It was on the market for 2 years. It all fell through, you know, and life came along and sort of decided for me rather than me deciding for life. And you just have to surrender and you have to think, well, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe there is something better around the corner. Again, coming back to those sliding doors, life did that for me. That wasn't personal choice. But my bounce back ability was really good. You know, of course I grieved. I had to rehome my dog, you know.
Oh,
Of course I grieved, and I've been through a grieving process, but I've learned so much about how I can hold space for myself, how I can be compassionate for myself within that. So as long as we get the silver lining, as long as we reframe and learn. I mean, some things obviously we can't reframe. Some things there are so many atrocities going on in the world and they are just shit and they shouldn't be happening, and, you know, all of that stuff. And we can't have a conversation about mindset and goals without weaving in the state of the world, because some people just don't have agency, and we get that.
yeah.
But if you do have agency and if you are privileged, it's about reframing and getting back on the wagon, and understanding that it's never your last chance. You know, the brain can change, the brain can adapt. There's always another chance.
And it links, I love that you said that. It also links into what we said earlier about maybe your goal has to change.
Yeah.
Remember, your goals are not fixed, they're not static, your goals are dynamic. So maybe as you've said, grown and changed, and your circumstances have changed, therefore your goal will change.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because you're in
Yeah.
control. It's your life. What a lovely way to end.
What a lovely way to end. Just quickly, when you're doing your goal setting, Serena, do
Yeah.
you write it out? Do you handwrite your goals, or do you have a goal planner? Do you have an app?
Well, now you're asking. So every year in January, I take 2 or 3 days out to do goal setting for the year.
Oh, wow.
And I used to, pre-COVID, go away for 2 or 3 days on my own to a cottage, usually by the sea, take loads of lovely food, loads of massive pieces of like A1 paper, loads of different stationery porn, loads of stationery, and take 2 or 3 days out to basically plan my year in between lovely walks and lovely food. And it was a beautiful like ceremony to set up my year. So paper, for me, it's all
Yeah.
paper, dexterity, using pens, drawing, kind of
Yeah.
big brain dumps of kind of what I want to do, starting with a great big splurge of life values first, and kind of setting personal and professional goals, as well as separate goals for finances, separate
Yeah.
goals for health and body. So maybe actually in future episodes, if people want to, they can let us know whether that would be useful to talk about.
Yeah,
Maybe
something
how
a little
we've
bit
done
more.
that.
Yeah, especially for you,
Yeah.
because obviously you're the queen of goals. I just sort of tumbleweed my way through.
But you do have goals. I want actually a nice way to end this is to say, has your view of goals changed at all?
Yeah,
Based on,
massively.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it really has. Like I know that I understand that sort of fear now around ticking things off, and maybe there's something I can do around that. But I definitely feel more motivated now in the new year to like really double down on that. Maybe take some time out, take a couple of days off, because I think you're right. I think there is a certain amount of fear that drives me to just fill that diary.
Yeah.
You know, get that money coming in. Just survival, really. It's like that survival mode. But I think now I have to understand that my business has got its own legs, and that if I do take some time out from my business, it's not going to crumble. Because I've been doing it for so many years now. I've got a good reputation, and you know, you build your reputation over time. So yeah, that's been a really key takeaway for me. Thank
Love
you.
it. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm learning as well. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you for this episode. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Serena, and we'll see you all next time.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Week since I had my hair dyed.
Oh, you could do this.
See? Yeah, I know. This is what I mean.
Yeah,
right.
good old whites and greys. Okay.
That's another podcast name. We're coming up with
That
all
should
the
be the
goods
name of our
today.
podcast. Well, these are pre-recorded, you know, so that was like terrible improv. That was the worst. I need to get back into improv. Fuck it. Yeah, let's start again.
Okay.
Hi, Serena.
Hi,
Welcome
Sally. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us?
Outtake Central.
Oh no, talk about maybe we can only do these in twos.